Hey, it's Amy Gretchen. Welcome back to another tutorial. Today I'm going to be talking you through my entire project life process from start to finish. There's a video out there of me just doing my work in Lightroom, but instead of trying to add on what I do in Photoshop and how I put a spread together, I just decided to do it all in one. So if you have seen that video, this will be a little bit of review, but there is a little bit towards the end of this portion in Lightroom that I wanted to show you how I deal with my 3x4 images and how I set those up to print. It's one of my favorite things in Lightroom is to be able to add your photos and in a collage and put them together. So I will show you kind of at the end of this. I don't know, it's probably around 15 minutes or gosh, I hope it's not that long. Maybe around 10 minutes or something like that. So let's just go and jump in and get started. You can see that I'm working. I'm definitely speeding this up. So the first thing that I do is I go through and look at my images and decide the ones that I want to choose, the ones that best represent my week, the ones that tell the stories that I want to tell. And I choose them by highlighting it and hitting P on my keyboard. That way that I can, when I'm done looking through all of my images, I can filter just the images that I want to look at. Now, if you can see in the bottom left corner, I have filtered 174. I've picked 174 that I like from the week, which is outrageous. It's way, way too much. But to be fair, the reason why I have so many is because this week happened to be during the 12 of 12 project. So I took quite a bit of pictures that day. So there's going to be just a group of images that I won't even need to deal with because they're going to be in my project life spread in my 12 of 12 collage. Okay, so the next thing that I do after I have filtered down all the flagged images is I go through my photos again. And I really use a critical eye and I decide what images really will be the best for that week or really will tell the stories that I want to tell. I have my notebook next to me and I kind of try to decide, which photos I will use for a story and which stories will be better just as a journaling card. So I go through it one more time. I highlight the image and I hit 5 on my keyboard, which will rate that image a 5 so that I can filter those images yet again. Okay, now once my images are filtered with just the 5s, I begin to edit my images. Now, if there's 8 images or 40 images like you're seeing, I like to edit them all because I end up using them for other things, and I definitely like to pick some of the best images and put them on my SmugMug account. So right here you're seeing me edit these images. The first thing I'm doing is using the spot tool, and I don't even know if that's the technical tool name, but I'm seeing some gray spots in my image because I believe I took this photo through my windshield. So there was some spots on the photo that I wanted to take care of. And Lightroom does a really great job of really matching those colors, especially on skies. So the next thing that you're seeing me do is this is an image that's really quite yellow and I'm trying to change the color. One of the things I like to do in Lightroom is I'll grab that eyedropper tool and I will put it on something that's neutral, like white or black or gray. And that will give me a really great base point to start from. And that image, it went a little too blue, and so I put a little bit more yellow back into it. I also have a action that I use a lot. The one that I used that I kind of altered myself was originally from Lily Blue. So I just have kind of changed it a little bit based on my needs. So I'm just going to go through and continue to change the images just by eye, the best that I think. I really do this fairly quickly. I tend to use an action. Maybe I'll add a little bit more contrast or exposure depending on how I took that image. And oftentimes when I'm taking a photo with my phone, I tend to have to change the temperature just a little bit because often it's just a little bit off. So the next thing I'm doing here is I'm looking at the images that I think would best represent the images for like a 3x4 card. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm actually cropping this image to work with a 3x4. I'm trying to take away that guy's leg with the spot tool. Now it would probably be a lot easier to do in Photoshop, but I'm trying to make it easy on myself and just do it here. It's not a big deal. It's not going to get printed huge, so I'm not going to worry about it. So the photos that I'm choosing for my 3x4s, I'm clicking on this little circle that is in the upper right-hand corner of the image. And what it's doing is it's throwing my images into a quick collection, and I'll show you that in just a minute. So I've gone through and I've highlighted the images that I've decided that I want to use for my 4x6 photos in my project life, and I'm exporting them. And the way that I export them is I put them on my Dropbox. I put them into my project life folder into Week07. I make sure that they are 4x6 size, or like 1800 for 300 pixels, and then I export it. And then I'm going to move on to my 3x4 card. So I'm coming up to my quick collection, and in my quick collection it's going to give me all those images that I pushed that little circle on. So I'm now going to print these or get these ready to be printed on a 4x6. I'm going to put two 3x4s on a 4x6, if that makes sense. It'll actually make more sense once I do it. So I'm in now the print module, and you're seeing that I've got this collage. This is the one I use for 12x12, but I want to set it up for two 3x4s on a 4x6. So I'm going to go over to the page setup, and I'm going to click on that, and you can see that I'm trying to scroll through to see if I have a template, and I do, but I couldn't find it. So I'm just going to show you how to do this step by step. I'm going to go down to the page setup, and I'm going to click on the printer that I want to use. Right now I'm using the Epson PM400. So I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to go down and I make sure that I've got a 4x6 highlighted, and that I definitely want it to be borderless. So I'm going and looking through the properties, and I found that option. So I'm clicking on that, and then it's going to give me, I want to make sure it's landscape, and then I've got the 4x6 photo that I want to use. So now I'm going to go through and work these settings. I want to make sure that zoom to fill is checked, but if you want to check the rotate to fit, that is going to be a personal preference, and I will show you as we go along what makes the difference there. And I want to make sure all my margins are set to 0 because I want this image to be borderless. And then I'm going to change the rows to 1 row and then 2 columns. And I want to make sure that the cell size is all the way up to a 3x4, and that way we're going to get borderless. Now you can see these images are on the side, and that's because I put rotate to fit. So it's rotating the image so the entire image fits. But I don't want to do that because I want these images to be oriented vertical on a 3x4. So I want to uncheck the rotate to fit so that I can have those images this direction. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to look through all of these prints that I've just now made. I'm going to click on this arrow at the bottom, and I'm going to adjust any images, move them around and adjust them the way that is pleasing to me. Most images that you take with a phone will not need to be or won't be able to be moved because they are a 3x4 picture, but anything with a different size camera, you'll definitely have to change that up, or you'll want to change that up. Now I'm also trying to decide, you know what, like this photo of Bella, I don't really like the way this is looking, this orientation, so I'm just going to hit that circle and get rid of it. Once I've gone through all of my images, now it's time to either print the images, or you can print them as a JPEG, which really means it's exporting it as a JPEG and it's saving it in whatever folder you want. So I really love that. You can either print directly right from Lightroom, or you can have it go to a folder. And the reason why I print it as a JPEG or I save it as a JPEG is because I want to then open it up in Photoshop and add journaling. That's the one thing that I wish that Lightroom did that it doesn't do, that you could add text. Because if it wasn't for that, I probably would never go into Photoshop when I'm doing this process, because I'm just adding my text when I do that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to find the folder that I want to add these images to. And then I'm going to throw them into that folder. And while that's working, I'm going to open up those images that the 4x6 images that I had already exported, and open them up into Photoshop. Okay, now that I've got the images that I want, I'm adding text to it. That's the only thing that I do in Photoshop. So I'm going to click on the type tool by either hitting T on my keyboard or going over to the menu and hitting the T. And I'm going to draw out a marquee, and I'm just going to start typing. And because the last thing I did in Photoshop was Project Life, I already have my text set up the way that I want. So I've got my 7-point type, and I have the font that I have chosen for this document already set in place. Now, the one thing that I do often change a lot is the color based on the photo that I'm using. I'm either using black or I'm using white. So that's something that I tend to change a lot. Now, when I type, I'm really just doing a stream of consciousness. So I often have a lot of spelling errors, and I have to go through and check it and recheck it. I always do a spell check just to make sure. And then when I have it the way that I want, and the paragraph formatted the way that I want, then I'll just hit print and I'll print out the image, and it's as easy as that. So I'm just going to go through each image and do the exact same thing. I'm going to make sure I have the text tool. I'm going to type out my words, and then I'm going to either change the color to black or white, and I'm going to choose the way I want to align my paragraph, either right align, left align, or center align. I do that all depending on the photo and the space that I have available. Now this tends to be, I think, probably the longest part, and it's because I'm trying to write out these stories. This story you're seeing in front of me is a lot longer. Sometimes they're 1 or 2 sentences, and sometimes it's more of a paragraph where I'm really trying to tell the story and tell it the best way that I can. So sometimes it takes longer than others. It just depends. But when I was recording this, I found that this part was kind of the longest. Lightroom was a very close second. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. And now I'm just going to skip ahead because I really don't do anything different except for go grab the photos that I exported, the 3x4s, and bring them into Photoshop and put text on them and do the same thing. So let's skip ahead and I will show you my process of how I put this spread together, which is my favorite part. So the first thing that I go ahead and do is I pull out my pocket protectors from the album. And I've done this earlier, so I knew how many photos I really wanted to use. But I'm going through and I'm looking and I see that I've got a Valentine's and I've got a letter from Megan. There's also something that she drew, and I've got some pocket protectors for my 12 of 12 collage that I'm going to put in there. And then I'm debating whether or not I'm going to maybe print a few more photos and add another pocket sleeve. There's a lot going on this week with 12 of 12. And it was a 4-day weekend and Valentine's. So I felt like, there was a lot of images and stories that I wanted to share. So I think I'm going to be adding another, half sheet of a pocket protector. So the first thing that I go ahead and do is I lay out the photos where I think I want them to go. And I think I've decided that I kind of want the extra insert to kind of be Valentine themed. So I'm using all those images from Valentine's Day. I'm grabbing that letter that Megan gave to us for Valentine's. I'm having to do a little bit of trim because she, for some reason, put tape on the front of it, I guess to seal it. So I needed to trim that up just a bit. And then I'm going to trim my 3x4 cards, and I'm using a tonic guillotine cutter, which I absolutely love. It's small enough for those 4x6 images, and it cuts straight every time, which is what I love. Sometimes I've had problems with other ones. So I'm just trying to lay it all out and decide where I want everything to go. And to kind of get everything out of the way, I'll often put it in the page protector. But as you'll see, as time goes on, I definitely move things around. Now that photo of Adam and the girls, I took out of the spread because I had done a similar story the week before, and I felt like I didn't need to tell the same story. So I went ahead and removed that from this week. And I feel actually really good about that decision. Now, I was trying to decide what I wanted to use as far as cards go. So I kind of was going through some of my Studio Calico kits, and I decided that I just got this February kit in the mail. So I'm going to bring that back out in just a minute, and I'm actually going to go through it on camera. I think I've decided to leave it on camera just so you can kind of see. This is the first time I opened it up. And I just wanted to look through the cards and see some of the options. If there were any, love or Valentine themed, that background of the hand-drawn hearts came from the January kit. But I knew that there would probably be something. And since I'm, week 2 into February, I wanted to definitely have some Valentine stuff going on. So I was just looking through those cards. I felt like it was a really cute kit and something that I've decided that it is really good for me, and I'm sure many of you out there are the same, to really limit the supplies that I use. So I either try to use like the February kits for February or the January kits for my weeks in January. They do overlap because I don't always get it before February 1st or before the beginning of the year. But I've pulled out some cards that I want to use, and I'm also going to look through my stash. I know that I had some chipboard hearts that I've held on to for a long time, and I'm also going to go through and look through the February kit and the rest of the things that it had. Now I'm going through some of my notes and I'm reminding myself of the stories that I want to tell, and then I realize I'm in a completely different week. So I'm kind of just reading through, and then I'm writing down some of the stories that do not go with cards that I want to tell separately. And so I'm just making a note of those, and you'll see that I put that on Post-its. And also in between this break, there's a break that you probably didn't know, I actually went and printed a few more photos. Now that I know that I'm going to be using an insert, I needed just a few more photos as well. So like I said, I'm just going to keep putting things in pockets and deciding where I want things to go and just mess around. And I'm not sure if I missed it or not, but I actually stamped the dates onto that card that Megan drew. So I'm going to put that back in the pocket as well. I think maybe I remember right, my camera cut off. My Canon, because it's older, only records about 9 minutes of footage. So then I actually did go through and look at the kit, and they had these great letter stickers, which I thought were great. They're puffy, so a little bit more plastic feeling than the chipboard. And then they had some word stickers or some phrase stickers, which I really love to be able to add to my photos. So those are the things that I tend to add the most. I don't do a ton of embellishments. If you've seen some of my other videos, you'll know that I don't do a ton of embellishments. Also, I just wanted to apologize for this portion of the video that is a little blurry. I did not realize that my camera was off when I recorded this portion, but I definitely do get back on track in just a minute. So bear with me, please. So I'm looking through the phrases and deciding which ones I want to use. I'm thinking I'll probably put a phrase on the majority of the images. So I'm just trying to figure out which ones goes best with which photo, which story that I want to tell. And then I'm using those hearts to kind of scatter those around the images as well. Then I'm deciding to use more letter stickers. Like I said, I tend to not use a lot of embellishments, but when I find something that I like, I'll tend to do it on multiple items to just try to bring my layouts together into more of a cohesive layout, since my colors are all over the board usually with my images. So I try to, add little bits of embellishments to bring everything together. Okay, so I had to take a little bit of a break. I was losing the light, so I'm back the next day, and I've done a little bit of journaling as well on my computer, and I just went ahead and printed that out. And now I'm adding, I think this is from the Ali Edwards prompt, from her story kit prompts, and I'm adding "Love You Because" just to the top, and then it needs a little something more, I decided, so I'm just going to take my marker or pen and go around the bottom and put "Love You" as well. Then I found this great card from the February kit as well that says "Reasons to be Happy." I had already written up this journaling about the friends that my girls had over this weekend. We had a lot of friends at the house, but when I saw this card, I thought it would be a really great wrap up to the weekend. Most of the time I do like a this week, or I will kind of give the details of each week, and I've kind of decided to go away from that. Doing that every week. What I think I'm going to do is the books that I'm writing all my notes in, I'm just going to stick it in the back of my album. So that's what I'm going to be doing. So I thought this gratitude card, in a sense, would be a really great wrap up to the week, since I wasn't going to be adding one of those this week cards. So I'm basically done. I'm just putting the final touches onto this spread. So this is my process. Now the only thing that's missing was my 8x10, 12x12 photo, but I will add that in once I get it printed. So if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask me. I find it really fascinating to see other people's process and to see what and how it works for them. So I hope this was helpful to you, and I hope that you guys have a fabulous day. Catch you later.